All right, we are on air. It is Thursday, March 5th, 2015, and we're going to do a quick check-in on the status of Backdrop and our general development tasks. New update from the PMC this week. Not quite as exciting as last week's announcement of a new core committer. But this week we have got some great news from one of our contributors who had been talking to PHP Storm about the free licenses that they offer for open source developers. And he was able to show them a list of all of the developers in the Backdrop contrib group and got approved 50 licenses because we have 50 developers in there for anyone who is working on Backdrop. So we have a license key. We're not allowed to distribute it publicly, but if anyone who's in the Backdrop contrib group wants a PHP Storm license, they should contact, I guess, either Nate or myself, and we can distribute the license key. I'm not sure if anyone else has it.
Do an email to info@backdropcms.org.
That'd probably be a good way.
That'll reach both of us.
Yeah, so if you send an email to info@backdropcms.org, or you can submit the contact form on our website, that also sends an email to that same address, and request a license key. You need to be a member of the Backdrop contrib group, so hopefully you already have a project in there. That way we can hand those out. So if anyone who wants to try PHP Storm, anyone who has it already, wants a newer version, any of that good stuff, let us know, which I think is amazing that we have a contributor that went out and talked to them for us and got licenses for our little open source community, which is fabulous. All right, so since last week, we have gotten a ton of new contributed projects. Are these numbers updated?
Yeah, brand new. Just updated. We now have 27 members of the Backdrop contributed group, and since last week, we have had 17 additional projects ported. We had 50 last week, and we have 67 this week. So, wow, awesome velocity on porting these modules. That's just fantastic.
And then I think Nate and we were also at Sandcamp over the weekend, and we did a talk on Backdrop, and one of the slides we had was a list of all of the top modules. And we chose the top 18. And of the top 18, 17 of them are either moved into core, have already been ported, or have ports underway. And the one that was remaining was WebForm, which we thought was kind of hysterical. And yesterday, Nate, you looked at all of the top, was it the top 100 modules?
Yeah, there's an issue in the Backdrop contrib group about our status on things. And I don't know the exact number, but we're roughly like 2/3 of the top 100 modules have been converted already.
Which I think is fabulous. So in terms of people being worried about if there's going to be enough module support for Backdrop, I think we're on a great trajectory to be comparable with Drupal 8 by the time Drupal 8 releases, which is kind of what we were going for. We wanted to be kind of a level playing ground on can you get the features you want. So I'm super excited about that, and thank you everybody who's been porting modules and building sites and all of the great stuff that's happening with Backdrop so far. Okay, so we have a couple of things that we're working on over in Backdrop land that are not actually Backdrop. The first, which we have made a bunch of progress on in the last few weeks, is Drush. And I think Drush is actually working with Backdrop in Calabox. So if you want to go ahead and set up Calabox, there is an article written by Mike of Calabox fame about how to modify Drush to get it working with Backdrop. So you can either use it in Calabox or you can follow his article and try and do it on your local site. I promised I would try and fiddle with it on MAMP, and I haven't actually gotten to it yet, but I'm really looking forward to that, which is super exciting. So if we can get kind of a hacked together version of Drush that works now, we'll also be able to get a more comprehensive path of the changes we need to actually make to Drush to make it stable, and then what we're going to need to include with Backdrop in order to support the Drush compatibility. So let's see, we've got a link in the Drush ops queue here, which I'm pasting into the chat, that talked about the changes that needed to happen to Drush, the refactoring that needs to pull kind of the Drupal out of the base system. And there's a great conversation going on there between Mike and Greg Anderson, the Drush maintainer, about kind of what's left on the roadmap there. There's also someone else who's been volunteering to make it work because they wanted to work on their platform, and there's been a bunch of really good conversation about, you know, next steps. So I think that's super exciting, and I can't wait to use Drush on Backdrop. There's obviously a couple of things that we're going to want to use Drush for that don't yet exist for Backdrop. One of those is Drush Up, right? We need an update server in order to be able to do updates to our site. So next item on our list here in terms of things we need to build for Backdrop is getting our update server done. We also have made some huge progress in terms of having a plan for how we want packaging and versions to be added to Drush Contrib projects. And we've got a plan. Nate's already got a module that will implement the GitHub APIs directly from Backdrop's new site. So as soon as we launch Backdrop's new site, we'll be able to have our packaging scripts running, we'll be able to add version strings, and then we'll be able to build an update server that can check those version strings and let us know if our stuff is up to date or not. So I'm super excited about getting the update server going, and I think that our new site is days away from launch, if not not being able to do it today. So I'm super excited about getting that going too. And then another thing that I don't see necessarily on the agenda, but another thing that I'm really going to want to do with Drush is Drush DL. Right when you go to download and install modules on your site, you can do a Drush DL module name, and Drush will go and pull that module down from Drupal.org and extract it and throw it into your code base. We're going to need to be able to build our own kind of Backdrop-specific process for dealing with that. And in order to do that, we're going to need to have kind of a canonical source for Drush to be able to check and say, hey, where's this module file? In order to do that, we're going to try and make that canonical source the Backdrop cms.org website, which means we need to be able to have nodes on that site that represent projects, modules, themes, and layouts. And we're also working on that as well. We have a design phase that we're going to start pretty soon that will allow people to create a node or edit a node if it got pulled in automatically from GitHub, and then view the node, because it's got to look pretty when you're looking at that project page, and find the projects, like a search form where you can try and find the thing you want. And all of the canonical sources of all of the modules will be referenced from our primary website, and also links to the tarballs that will contain the correct version information will all be on that website. So hopefully Drush will be able to talk to our website and say, you know, go get me a copy of WebForm, whatever module it is, and then it can download it and extract the right version. So I think that, you know, getting Drush working is really important, but also all of the tools that we love to use in Drush need to have all of these other systems working as well. We're making a bunch of progress on all of that stuff also. Longer term, we would also like people to be able to create a project on GitHub and check a box that identifies that project as being specifically for Backdrop, and that would be the equivalent of creating something like a sandbox project. But shorter term, we're really more worried in just getting the supported projects listed and people be able to create their own nodes on the Backdrop primary website. If we have anyone that wants to play with GitHub services, there is some great documentation on GitHub about how to do that, but it is lower priority at the moment. So let's see. Also for our primary website, obviously our priority is getting the modules, themes, and layouts up there. But longer term, we also want to be able to set up a showcase. We've started to see a whole bunch of people posting links to sites that they've built in Backdrop, which is super exciting. If anyone watching this chat or you know, either participating now or later releases any websites, definitely let us know. Tweet at Backdrop CMS or you know, otherwise publicize the fact that you're running Backdrop, and we'll try and make a big deal out of it short term. Longer term, we will try and build a showcase on the Backdrop cms.org website so that you can post screenshots of your thing, you can write a little blurb about how you built it or what it's for, or any information you want about your site, and we'll try and give you a nice place to show it off there. But short term, we'll try and show things off via Twitter as much as possible. So thank you for all building websites on Backdrop. We're really proud of all of you, and we're excited to help promote those as much as we can. Also, we want to eventually post lists of people who are providing services related to Backdrop. We have had a ton of interest from hosting companies that are really interested in hosting Backdrop sites, and their development shops that are now also talking about the fact that they're building in Backdrop. And I think as soon as we can, we're going to try and get service directory, some kind of service directory on Backdrop site as well. But obviously, we want to get modules and themes and people that enable these people to do these services first, and then we're going to be able to list the services on the site. So long term, we'll try and get all of those up too. And then, of course, if we start having people looking for Backdrop jobs, looking at job site, I think Drupal did a really fabulous job with their job site on Drupal.org, and we should try and do the same thing over in Backdrop land. We've also got more exciting stuff, Backdrop of the project itself. A couple of things coming up on our agenda. We have a new bug fix release for Backdrop CMS, which should be coming out shortly. I don't know. I know we've got the big problem that we talked about last week, which was when you import configuration files that include config for a theme, your import would just fail. And this is something that Luke discovered during his testing a week and a half ago. We've fixed that problem. We figured out what the problem was, and we now have the system module owning all theme configuration files, which mitigates the problem. And we've also gotten a ton of other little tiny bug fixes in too since then. So we should probably schedule and release a new update for Backdrop 1.04. I don't know, Nate, if you have any thoughts on when we should do that.
Yeah, we're going to release it really soon, probably next week at the latest. And the reason for that is we've made a bunch of fixes. When we did a demo at Sandcamp, we had to work around them a little bit. Luke, when you gave a demo at Berkeley, you ran into a couple of problems. We fixed those problems, and there's a couple other things that we know about, but we fixed some pretty major problems with doing full site imports and exports, especially between different environments, as well as exporting theme settings. So we've got some pretty serious fixes that I think that we should release as soon as possible. And then, we can just keep on trucking on, fixing bugs as we find them. But it would be nice to be able to do these demos that Luke did and that we did without running into any of these problems.
So are there any issues in the queue that, as soon as we get this thing fixed, we can do the next bug release? Or is it just kind of whenever?
I think that we're already at we should make a release as soon as possible stage. There's a couple more bugs that we know about. There's actually a lot of bugs that we know about that
there's nothing that's super important.
But they're a little bit more involved. I think that we should just say, let's make the new minor release, or the new bug fix release as soon as possible.
Okay, so maybe today or tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds great. That's good. So that's our bug fix release 104, and then we will start tagging other bugs that aren't yet fixed with 105. We are still working on our next minor release, which is 1.1, and that'll be out on May 15th. We've got a couple of major things we've got planned for that. The biggest one is the rich text editor. That's also the hardest one, and it doesn't look like we've been making any progress on that yet. So that is approaching the chopping block here, which is a little worrisome. Other things we're working on are Token and PathAuto in Core. And both Token and PathAuto now have stable Backdrop versions, which is fabulous. They just need to be kind of examined closely and figured out, like, how does this stuff fit best in Core? Like, we can't just put the module in. Well, I guess we could, but that's not. The plan is not just to plunk the module as it is now into Core, but instead to rethink the problem space and put the pieces into Core kind of where they belong. So rather than Token providing tokens for each system, those tokens go into each system itself. I really want to take a look at Token module and kind of start thinking about that. There's some kind of tricky problems in there. I wanted to do it earlier this week, but then I got distracted by fun stuff like making Backdrop pretty. So I'll try and do the hard stuff today and see if we can start making some progress on that. I think if we can kind of outline a path forward with some clear steps that people could do, people will pick those up. But the whole thinking about the hard stuff is not nearly as attractive as the doing the fun stuff. So I'm trying to get that moving. And then the same thing works for PathAuto, thinking about where the interfaces should be, and trying to get the automatic stuff merged in with Path module, I think, is trickier than just plunking the PathAuto module into Core. So same kind of problems faced there, where if we had a clear path forward, people would probably just do it. But since it's kind of murky on how we're going to solve that problem, no one started the murky part. So I think we'll do token first and then see where we get with that. But I have confidence that we'll get both token and path auto into core by May 15th. We still have, 2 months plus a few days. So I think we'll be fine on those. Something that we have been getting a lot of progress on, which is fabulous, is changing Backdrop's administrative look and feel. We have a great style guide. We've got a whole bunch of improvements that are going in, and we've got the style guide turned into a bunch of issues that people are actively working on. So we've got a whole bunch of new theme stuff going into our next branch, which I think is going to make Backdrop start to feel different than Drupal. So when people install Backdrop 1.1, they'll know this is a Backdrop site as opposed to a Drupal 7 site, which I think is really important for our brand long term to kind of help differentiate ourselves from the competition. So I'm really excited that we're getting a whole bunch of movement forward on that. And then we also have milestones in the GitHub queue if you want to see what's coming up for 1.1, 1.2, etc. We tag issues we think are particularly important for those releases for those milestones if you want to search by those. And then, of course, there's a bunch of stuff we're working on in Backdrop that is not tied to any particular release. We have user experience changes, and we have developer experience changes. These are two areas where we feel that Drupal has needed a lot of work, and we're trying to focus specifically on getting those things improved in Backdrop. So user experience issues, sometimes these are bugs that can be fixed if there's something you couldn't figure out. But most of the time, they are classified as new features, which means that as they get fixed, they would go into, for example, the 1.1 branch as opposed to a bug fix release. But we do have a bunch of stuff that I think if we can clean up, like terminology for edit versus configure, if we can get that in 1.1, the same time the admin interface gets its little facelift, I think that would also be huge for usability and just feel of, what does it feel like to use Backdrop? Just kind of making that first impression a little bit different. Like, we think about these things over here and we've tried to fix them. Obviously, they've done a bunch of work in Drupal 8 as well, but I would love for us to be caught up on that front too. So developer experience issues are a little bit trickier because even though we really value how developers feel about interacting with the software, making changes that improve developer experience are much harder to do without breaking APIs. So if we can do things like introduce a wrapper function to add easier porting from Drupal 7 to Backdrop, we can do that. But if we have to do something like change the order of arguments passed into a function, that's not something we can do without breaking APIs. But we do still want to know about problems that people run into as you're porting modules or as you're writing custom modules for Backdrop. If you find something that's funny, open an issue and say, why is this funny? Can we change it? And if it's not something we can do in the 1.x cycle, we can classify that developer experience improvement as 2.x, and at least we'll know it's a problem and we'll have a plan for how to fix it in the future to make Backdrop easier for people to code for forever. So we definitely want to hear about them, especially now that we have people working on porting modules and writing new modules for Backdrop. Let us know if there's anything in there that's kind of funny or hard to understand or you think would make sense in a different way, and we can try and approach those problems as they come up. We have a bunch of sprints every Thursday. After the end of this meeting, we meet in IRC. And everyone kind of grabs some issues and tackles them together, and we talk about problems or answer questions. And I would love it if we could get companies to start allowing developers a couple of hours on a Thursday to come and play with Backdrop. So if you work for a company and you want to try and fight for community time, that might be a fun place to spend it. And then, of course, if you're independent and you can work your own schedule, that's also even more fabulous. If you want to work on Backdrop and Thursday afternoons don't work for you, that's also fine. Nate and I are usually in IRC all hours of every day, so we do often have real work that needs to be done. Anyone who has any time to contribute to Backdrop, we usually like to help encourage that, however. And if Nate and I aren't there, there are plenty of other people that hang out in IRC too. So ask questions, and there are people in there who will be able to answer it. We're so far been really great, had a whole bunch of people who are super enthusiastic and willing to step up and help where necessary. So definitely join us in IRC. That's the best place for us to kind of all chat real time. But if IRC isn't your thing, we also have a Reddit where you can ask questions in kind of a more forum-style conversation, where people can post questions and people will post answers. And we've actually had a lot of success with if someone who's on Reddit doesn't know the answer to the question, they'll ask someone else to come answer the question on the Reddit post. So I think that I've been super excited with how well Reddit is working for our community as in terms of a place to casually talk about things rather than something like Stack Exchange, which tends to be just questions and answers. Reddit's a really good place to kind of have nice little discussions. So our subreddit is reddit.com/r/backdrop. Our IRC channel is #backdrop, and those are probably the two places where our community gets together to hang out and chat and discuss things the most. So I definitely encourage everyone to pop in there. We do have this weekly meeting every Thursday, 1 p.m. California time, where people can get together and talk about Backdrop also. And then we also have a bi-weekly or fortnightly design meeting, which happens right before this on Thursdays, where we just talk about outstanding design tasks. So that's kind of where the community gets together. We also have, there is a Twitter feed at BackdropCMS, and we have a Twitter hashtag BackdropCMS. And so if anyone wants to talk about Backdrop on Twitter, that's also a good place to do it. And let's see. We also have a bunch of upcoming events that are Backdrop friendly. So if anyone is going to South by Southwest, Doug will be there. He'll be doing some trainings, I think, on Drupal 8. There will be a whole bunch of people there just talking about cool tech stuff in general, and that's kind of a good place to go, and it's nice level playing ground where anyone can talk about Backdrop with no ill will. There's also a bunch of Drupal events coming up that are Backdrop friendly, where we've either been invited by the organizers or asked by community members to come to their camp and talk about Backdrop. So those are a couple of fun places to go as well. The next one on our calendar is MidCamp, which is in Chicago in March. Oh, it is March. It's 2 weeks, I think. We just secured a MidCamp sponsorship. We're going to be sponsoring the Sprint Room, where they're doing sprints and BOFs all week long, which is super exciting. We were at Stand Camp last week, which also I thought went really well. We had a training, we had a session. Everybody talked about Backdrop at the parties and seemed really positive about it, which was also really great. We saw a Backdrop presentation at a local meetup. Nate, was that in North Carolina? Do you remember?
Yeah, North Carolina. It's the Drupal Drive-In.
The Drupal Drive-In North Carolina, which is super exciting. It looks like Jeff has it on the schedule for the next local meetup in Western Massachusetts, which is also really great. So I think it's good that now that we have a product out, people are starting to use it, people are starting to like it, which is fabulous. We thought that would happen, but we weren't really sure. So it's really good to kind of have validation that this is something that people wanted, and that we're doing things the right way, which is good, or at least a way that people find appealing. I know I got an email in my inbox today, which is an invitation to another camp, but I haven't read it yet, so we'll add that to the next week's agenda instead. But yeah, I'm super excited about all of the great things that are going on. I can't wait to see all the sites that are built with Backdrop. I can't wait to hear more people that's not Nate and myself talking about Backdrop, and just letting us know if we're doing things right, if we're doing things wrong. Just chatter, I think, is generally good. DrupalCon LA is coming out is going to happen in May. Is that right? In May. We're trying to be pretty careful about not submitting sessions to DrupalCons, not making too big a stink in the event itself. But we do have articles coming out in Drupal Watchdog, which will be released at the same time. We're going to be there. We're going to be talking to people. We're thinking about organizing some kind of a social event, like a want to come talk about Backdrop, do it at this, restaurant for dinner on Wednesday or something that's a little bit more casual, a little less formal than a session, where people can just kind of ask questions and chit-chat about things, which I think would be really kind of a nice, friendly way to engage people who are there for DrupalCon and want to hear about things but don't necessarily aren't going to get it, as part of the official schedule. So we haven't chosen a place. We have a potential sponsor. I think it would be great to kind of organize an informal sort of bar night meetup style thing. So that's on our plates to set that up too. And speaking of fun, informal things Backdrop community is doing, we are designing and ordering our very first set of t-shirts, and we just decided in the design meeting half an hour ago or so that it's just going to be a plain, like, dark gray t-shirt with a white backdrop logo print on the front of it. They're going to cost, I think the price might even end up going down. The last quote we got was about $15 per shirt, but if we do a single print with a plain white logo on a black or dark gray shirt, that'll probably turn into $13 a shirt. So if anyone wants a shirt, let us know. We can increase the order quantity. We're currently only planning on ordering 50 in our first order, but if you want a shirt, you can pay $20 or something, and we can ship it to you. That would include your shipping cost. And then we can increase the number. So anyone who's watching this video now and wants a shirt, you can email us at info@backdropcms.org, or you can fill out the contact form on our website. That should go to the same place. And we'll go ahead and increase that order quantity, and we'll collect your shipping address and all of that stuff. Doug Van has very generously offered to cover the cost of the first order of t-shirts and also manage the distribution of shirts for anyone who wants a shirt for us, which is so amazing. So first of all, thank you very much, Doug, for being such a positive, enthusiastic supporter of Backdrop and helping us do these things that I think people are really going to love us for, like distributing t-shirts and similar. So I think, like, our first shirt will just be a plain Backdrop logo. We've got 2 days to get the design out, so I think that also helps kind of influence our direction on that. And if/when we have a drop camp, we will spend a little bit more time designing a kind of more crazy t-shirt that we can put some sparkle dust on or something and make it extra special. But I think for now, we've only got 2 days to do the design. We want to do something clean and simple, and Backdrop logo is the way to go. So I'm super excited about that too. Let's see, is there anything else anyone here wants to talk about? Anything happened this week other than websites going live and contributed modules being ported and design being finalized and camps being happy about Backdrop?
I think we skimmed over it, but we're going to launch the new backdropcms.org on Backdrop like this week. So that's exciting too.
Yeah. We finally got all our modules ported, which is great. We had a whole bunch of people just be like, here's everything you need. Just like, whoa, you guys are fabulous. So yeah, I think we're pretty darn close. We've got, I think there's 2 modules that are we didn't even need for a launch. We're like, we really want to do these really soon, and then they ended up getting done before we launched the site. So that's totally fabulous.
Yeah, it sounds like search config still needs a little work, but other than that, every single module we had on the old site has now been ported to Backdrop, which is awesome.
Fabulous. All right.
I have a question.
Sure.
Was there any feedback from the training in San Diego? Any feedback that can be used to incorporate any changes, or any feedback at all?
We definitely have some feedback. I just actually got a message from Darius. So Darius and Ezenwa presented this training at Sandcamp that was basically a half day on Backdrop, which hopefully is all you'd need since it's very similar to Drupal 7 if you know Drupal 7 already. And he said he had some feedback and some strategy for how to approach things going forward, which is good. I haven't talked to him about it in detail, but it sounds like he wants to have that meeting. So Doug, I don't know if you're planning on doing Backdrop trainings anytime in the near future, but maybe you should talk to him about it too, and get on the same page with what he's already learned.
I certainly will. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, we did fix the problems that that I think they probably encountered the same problems with cross-site exporting and importing. So, and I know Luke encountered it as well in his demo. So that problem has been fixed. Speaking of Sandcamp, though, I saw this thing, which I haven't told anybody about. Check this out. Oh yeah, that's an innovation award. Sandcamp awarded Backdrop along with Calabox and Pantheon an innovation award for our contributions to the Drupal community, which is pretty exciting. Although it was prefixed very politically correct by saying that we're going about it in an unusual way, but it's still a contribution to the Drupal community. So that was pretty exciting, and thank you so much, SandCamp and yeah, and all Drupal camps for that invite us to come and speak at your events. It's been really honored and really impressed with the openness.
Our first award. So cute. Yeah, I thought SandCamp went really well. It's finally starting to feel like, we have a product, people are interested in it, and people are using it. Like, this thing is working, which is super exciting to have like people in the community be like, I want that. Thank you so much. Like, I was really worried about Drupal 8 and then wasn't sure what I was going to do, and now I know what I'm going to do. And it's like, oh, we've solved some problems for people. So it feels good to have some validation. All right, well, it is, I guess that's a wrap, unless anyone has anything else to add. But we will talk again in a week. Hopefully we'll have a new live site by then, running on Backdrop, which will be great, backdropcms.org. And yeah, more progress on the software.
All right, thanks everybody for joining.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.